Grace and Marcus were on the verge of getting married, yet both harbored secrets from each other. Grace had never told Marcus he was her first love. She had written him 300 love letters, anonymously sponsored him during his toughest times, and even donated a kidney to him the year he was critically ill. Marcus, for his part, had never told Grace about the unattainable crush he held in his heart. He had secretly loved Chairman's heiress for 7 years, feeling as insignificant as a voyeur in the shadows. He clawed his way to the top, only to one day place a 10-carat diamond ring on her finger himself. A week before the wedding, Marcus finally laid it all out for Grace. I proposed to Tiffany, and she said yes. She sponsored me back then, and I can't forget her. I can't forget what she did for me. You're short on cash, aren't you? I'll give you $10 million as a severance payment. Just go abroad and don't come back. Wouldn't want Tiffany to be upset. Grace felt a chill run through her. I poured my heart and soul into you for 7 years. In your eyes, am I just a gold digger? Marcus scoffed. Aren't you? Grace said nothing more. After he left, she dialed the number known by heart. Honoring the deal, I'll marry into the Hayes family in 7 days. Also, don't tell Marcus that I am the Lynn family heiress. Finally, that stubborn girl is coming to her senses. On the other end of the line, Dad's voice carried a clear note of relief. I'll be back in the country in 7 days to give you a lavish wedding. A $10 billion wedding gift will be transferred to your bank card on time. Let's see who dares to underestimate my daughter, Richard's daughter. Even with a windfall about to land in her lap, it couldn't fill the void in Grace's heart. Chloe called to comfort her, her voice cracking with anger. He dares to complain about your bad temper? Ugh. What heiress, reduced to a housekeeper, could possibly have a good temper? What's more, you gave up a life of luxury to struggle with him for 7 years. What's wrong with losing your temper? What right does he have to call you willful? Grace numbly listened to Chloe rant about Marcus for a full hour. She shifted her stiff limbs, but her bottom accidentally pressed the remote control. The TV suddenly sprang to life, broadcasting an interview with rising business mogul, Marcus. On the Jumbotron, he wore a designer suit, his hair meticulously combed, his handsome face rivaling that of a celebrity. The host asked who he wanted to thank most from over the years, and Marcus's face was filled with emotion. That would be Miss Lynn. In my senior year of high school, she sponsored me. Fearing it would hurt my pride, she concealed her identity and corresponded with me for 3 years. My university tuition, my first startup capital, it all came from her. I owe everything I am today to her. Tiffany gracefully walked onto the stage, took his hand, and smiled shyly. Marcus, I'm happy for you, seeing how far you've come. Their hands clasped, their eyes meeting, and the host and audience members all showed expressions of feeling the chemistry. But, in front of the screen, felt her fingertips turn ice cold, trembling uncontrollably. Because every single thing Marcus said, she was the one who had quietly done it behind the scenes. She was only just realizing that during the years she was abroad, her identity had actually been usurped by this woman named Tiffany. Who was this woman? How dare she impersonate her, the heiress of the wealthiest family? She needed to investigate this thoroughly. Grace immediately snapped a picture of Tiffany and sent it to her private investigator. Chloe, on the other end of the phone, had also heard the interview and was furious. Is that Tiffany out of her mind? You need to reveal your true identity immediately. Marcus must be blind to mistake her for you. Grace was about to speak when tears streamed down her face. She couldn't understand it. For 7 years, that mysterious Lynn family heiress had never shown her face. And she, who had poured her heart and soul into him for 7 years, only received a casual breakup once he became successful. Suddenly, a sound came from the entryway, and she quickly hung up the phone. Marcus walked in, looking exhausted. Seeing her, he paused. Why are you still here? Grace's fingertips trembled, her heart aching so much she could barely breathe. Don't forget, I paid the down payment on this house. When they bought the house, Marcus had sworn to her with red-rimmed eyes, Grace, I'll work hard and give you a better life someday. Back then, he adored their small home, diligently planning their future, mopping the floor spotless every day. This 80-square-meter apartment held 7 years of their relationship. But now, he wore tens of thousands of dollars custom-made leather shoes, carelessly stepping on the clean floor. Hearing her words, Marcus's expression shifted slightly, and a hint of mockery entered his eyes. Of course, money is all you care about. I paid the remaining balance. This house is yours. We're done for good now. Grace's heart felt like it was being sliced with a dull knife. Then move out quickly. Don't leave anything behind. Marcus froze for a moment, then suddenly grew angry. He glanced at the interview playing on the TV and curled his lip. You'll never change that awful temper, you really can't compare to Tiffany in any way. He grumbled as he packed his things. I know you resent me, but honestly, how many times have we fought in these 7 years? I like gentle and selfless girls like Tiffany. Enduring you for 7 years was my limit. All these years we were together, you were penny pinching every day, hunting for coupons for discounted clothes, and sharing a ride for a cab. To be honest, your bargaining over every penny made me feel ashamed. The more Grace listened, the angrier she got. She walked over and slapped him hard across the face. Done talking? Then get out. Marcus stared in astonishment, covering his face, his narrow eyes filled with disappointment. He looked at Grace for a while, then suddenly pulled at the corner of his mouth, letting out a soft scoff. Grace, are you satisfied now? Then let's call it even. He dragged his suitcase to the door, paused, and looked back at her. Don't you have anything else to say to me? Grace shook her phone, her voice devoid of warmth. That 10 million, by check or bank transfer? I don't accept delayed payments. Marcus's back stiffened, and a self-mocking curve appeared on his lips. Go check your bank card yourself, you materialistic woman. With a bang, the door slammed shut. Not until the footsteps outside completely faded did Grace lose all strength, sliding down the wall to sit on the floor, her clothes on her chest crumpled from where she'd clutched them. She cried until her throat was hoarse, all the accumulated grievances and pain of 7 years surging up at that moment. She remembered when the Lynn family sponsored disadvantaged students. There were only 5 spots, and Marcus, who should have had one, arrived late. While others were arguing fiercely over the spots, he was by the river, saving a drowning puppy. That day, Grace sat in her car, watching him, soaking wet, holding the puppy, head bowed, afraid to meet the principal's eyes. Her heart suddenly stirred, and on an impulse, she said, "Sponsor him, under my name." From that day on, she began writing letters to Marcus, always signed, "My Secret Admirer." Over 3 years, his letters evolved from initial inferiority and gratitude to a barely concealed affection in every line. Later, when she went abroad for treatment, those letters became her only solace. Holding on to that hope, she endured the surgery, eagerly awaiting her return to see him. The subsequent 300 letters were all love letters from her. After returning, she didn't reveal she was my secret admirer, instead meeting and dating Marcus as usual. She always felt that no matter her identity, Marcus would love her for who she was, so there was no need to mention that name again. In those 7 years, they had countless petty arguments and even broke up, but each time, one of them would reconcile first, and their love would deepen further. Even when Marcus was diagnosed with kidney failure, she secretly donated a kidney to him. At the time, Marcus hugged her tightly, his eyes red. Grace, thank goodness for you. I swear I'll never betray you in this life. She accompanied Marcus from nothing to becoming the rising business mogul he was now. She had even compiled all the moments of the past decade, along with 400 letters, into a PowerPoint presentation, intending to tell him on their wedding day that she was my secret admirer. But now, it seemed, there was no need. $10 million had already arrived in her bank account. Marcus had indeed kept his word, acting with such speed as if he couldn't wait to cut ties with her, unwilling to wait even a second longer. Over their 7 years together, he had been considerate towards her. All his promises, except for "I will marry you and give you a lifetime of happiness," he had kept. But it was precisely this unfulfilled promise that left Grace struggling to breathe with pain now. Chloe arrived quickly, shouting as she walked in, "That brooch you've been looking for has news. It's at the auction house." Grace didn't hesitate, following Chloe to the auction house. As soon as she took her seat, she saw the familiar brooch on the stage. It was her grandmother's favorite emerald brooch, priceless, and she had searched for it for a long time after it was accidentally lost 20 years ago. Grace raised her paddle without thinking. 3 million. But then a sickly sweet voice came from behind her. "Marcus, I love this one, will you buy it for me?" Followed by Marcus's doting voice, "Of course." 4 million. Grace whirled around, meeting Marcus's astonished gaze. She immediately raised her bid, 5 million. Marcus didn't back down. The two refused to yield, and the price soared, quickly reaching 10 million. Just then, Grace's phone vibrated. It was a furious text from Marcus. "Are you insane? What exactly are you trying to do? Drop out of the bidding right now." From behind, Tiffany's playful voice cooed, "Marcus, you know I love vintage brooches like this the most." Marcus gritted his teeth, then spoke in a deep voice to the auctioneer, 11 million. The next second, Grace slowly raised her paddle, and all in bid. No one in the entire room dared to bid again. Tiffany's eyes reddened, and with a sob, she turned and rushed out. Marcus hurried after her. Grace, however, breathed a sigh of relief. After the transaction, she pinned the brooch to her collar and walked out arm in arm with Chloe. Chloe nudged her with her elbow. That was so satisfying. Did you see the impostor's face? Grace suppressed the lingering sting in her heart, lifted her chin, and gave a proud smile. Of course, she looked like a ridiculous clown. The two chatted and laughed until they reached the entrance of the auction house when an enraged figure suddenly burst in front of them. Grace! Marcus pushed her against the wall, his eyes blazing with fury. Where did you get the money for an all-in bed? Grace sneered, struggling to push him away. None of your business. Get lost. He didn't release her. Instead, he scrutinized her up and down, a hint of mockery slowly surfacing in his eyes. Are you deliberately competing with Tiffany to get my attention? Grace felt a wave of nausea, her tone turning cold. This was my grandmother's. I only bought it back to return it to its rightful owner. I'm not like some people who love to steal what belongs to others. Her double entendre made Marcus's face freeze like ice. Your grandmother lived a simple, rural life. How could she possibly afford something so expensive? He paused, his face growing even darker. I just gave you 10 million, and you dare to spend it on an all-in bed? Tiffany looked into your background. Are you involved with some powerful figure in Capital City? Slap. Grace suddenly looked up and slapped him hard. Her heart ached as if being squeezed, a surge of anger rushing to her head. Don't insult my grandmother. You don't deserve to. Chloe beside her stamped her foot in anger. Are you blind? Do you know who she is? Grace quickly gave Chloe a look, stopping her from continuing. She didn't want to expose her identity so soon. Chloe understood, turning and getting into the car. But this action, in Marcus's eyes, made it seem like Grace felt uneasy. The anger in his eyes, mixed with disappointment, burned even hotter. Grace, I truly underestimated you. You're so capable. I suppose it was quite a sacrifice for you to live in a cramped apartment with me back then. After all this time, in his mind, she was that kind of person. Grace's chest ached with a suffocating pain, but she deliberately forced a nonchalant smile. What does it have to do with you? We broke up a long time ago. A fierce glint flashed in Marcus's eyes, and he reached out, pinching her chin. Since you're selling herself, why don't you sleep with me? I'll give you a higher price. With that, his harsh kiss was about to descend, but Grace turned her head away in disgust. Just then, a shrill scream pierced the air. What are you doing? Tiffany stood not far away, her face pale as she looked at them. Marcus abruptly pushed Grace away as if shocked, rushing to Tiffany in a few steps. The push was forceful and careless. Grace stumbled, hitting the stone column behind her, sucking in a sharp breath from the pain. Tiffany, don't misunderstand, there's nothing going on between her and me. Let me explain. Tiffany, however, rolled her eyes and simply fainted. Marcus immediately scooped her up in his arms and walked away without looking back at Grace. Hearing the commotion, Chloe quickly got out of the car and rushed over to support her. Grace, are you okay? Did you get hurt? Grace waved a pale hand, about to say I'm fine, but suddenly, a sharp cramping pain shot through her stomach. Quick, take me to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, Grace's phone vibrated. It was a message from the private investigator. Tiffany's background has been uncovered. She's the daughter of your former housekeeper, Brenda. Grace looked at the message, a sudden realization dawning on her. Brenda, the housekeeper, was temporarily hired by Dad after Grace went abroad. She reportedly only worked for a year before being fired for being light-fingered and dishonest. Considering the clothes and shoes Tiffany was wearing earlier, they looked suspiciously like the $1 million designer outfit Dad had given Grace last year. Clearly, Brenda and her daughter had secretly taken her belongings and were using the Lynn family name to impersonate her. Grace sneered inwardly. I've never suffered such an indignity in my life. Chloe, beside her, pounded the steering wheel in anger. Those thieving mother and daughter. Let's expose them right now. Let's see what kind of trash his unattainable crush is. Hold on, Grace said calmly. Let her continue her act. The higher you stand, the harder you fall. I want to see Marcus's face when he finds out on their wedding day that the Lynn family heiress he's been yearning to marry is an impostor. But at the hospital, when the test results came back, Grace stared at the lab report, completely stunned. She was pregnant. 3 months along. Grace's mind was a chaotic mess. She had never imagined that a tiny life was quietly growing inside her. But she didn't hesitate for a moment, turning to the nurse to schedule an abortion. She was to marry into the Hayes family in 7 days, Marcus's child absolutely could not remain. Yet, when the day of the surgery actually arrived, Grace couldn't help but feel a pang of panic. After all, it was a living, breathing tiny life. While waiting in line at the payment counter, Grace looked up and bumped into Marcus. He was supporting Tiffany, carefully guarding her stomach, and seeing Grace, his brow immediately furrowed. "Grace, what are you doing here?" Grace's gaze fell on his hand, protecting Tiffany's stomach, and her heart gave a fierce thump. Could also be pregnant? With child? Tiffany leaned weakly into Marcus's embrace, acting flirtatiously. "Marcus, isn't this the lady who was bidding against me for the brooch yesterday? She looks so pale, why don't you go help her?" Marcus kissed Tiffany's forehead dotingly. "Don't mind her. She's just an insignificant person." Grace remained silent, slowly shuffling forward. Just as she was about to hand over her payment slip, Tiffany suddenly grabbed her hand, her voice sharply raised. "Hey? Why is this a record for an abortion? No wonder you had money for an all-in bid. It must be the money from your sugar daddy for an abortion." Her voice was so loud that the entire payment area could hear it. People around them turned their heads, their eyes filled with curiosity and scrutiny. Marcus stared at the word abortion on the slip, a storm brewing in his eyes. He stepped forward and grabbed Grace's arm. "Whose child are you carrying?" The surrounding gazes felt like needles piercing her, yet Marcus didn't say a single word to stop Tiffany, only relentlessly questioning Grace. Grace's heart clenched, and she suddenly remembered the past. Back then, when they were just starting their business, a client made an inappropriate comment to her, saying, "You're so beautiful, why suffer with Marcus? Come with me, you'll make money fast." At the time, Marcus's eyes had immediately turned red. He grabbed the bottle from the table and charged, beating the man until he was arrested, shouting, "Take your pathetic contract and get out. My is the most honorable woman in the world. Say one more word, and I'll destroy you." Back then, she had thought that having Marcus protect her for life was worth it. But now, he stood by, watching Tiffany insult her in public, not even saying a single word in her defense. Grace stepped forward and slapped Tiffany across the face. The crisp sound of the slap echoed through the hospital lobby. Tiffany clutched her face, her eyes wide. You dared to hit me?" "Yes, I did. You have such a big mouth." Grace looked at her coldly. "This is slander, and I can sue you anytime." With that, she turned to leave, but her wrist was seized by Marcus's vice-like grip. "Grace, apologize to Tiffany." Grace had never seen such an expression from him. It was icy, with a hint of menace. But she didn't back down. "She slandered me first, and you know my fiery temper. I won't apologize. I endured your fiery temper for 7 years, but Tiffany is different. Her status is beyond your reach." Marcus's grip tightened. "Apologize, now." Tiffany smoothed her hair, a flash of triumph in her eyes, and deliberately snuggled closer to Marcus. Grace chuckled at her behavior. "Status? What status does she have? Don't tell me she's the heiress of chairman. Someone like her? Does she really deserve it?" Just as she was about to pull away from Marcus's hand, a stinging pain erupted on her face. Marcus had slapped her. The area instantly fell silent, every breath audible. Grace clutched her face, looking at Marcus in disbelief. This was the first time he had ever laid a hand on her. Marcus's hand hovered in midair. "Grace, Marcus, my stomach hurts a little." Tiffany suddenly let out a soft gasp, gently placing a hand on her stomach. "Is the baby kicking me?" Marcus's attention was immediately diverted. He didn't spare Grace another thought, quickly helping Tiffany walk toward the exam room. "Tiffany, don't panic, I'll take you to see the doctor." Grace stood rooted to the spot, the pain in her face and heart mingling, which only strengthened her resolve. She walked to the payment counter, handed over the slip, and then walked step by step into the operating room. The surgery was over quickly, like a dream. Grace lay on the hospital bed, feeling hollow, as if a part of her was missing, her face pale. It was the first time she had felt a tiny life leave her body, and that empty feeling was suffocating. Out of the operating room, Grace made a phone call. "Arrange for me to go to a secluded chapel in the suburbs tomorrow. I need to book a memorial service for the deceased." After hanging up, she slowly walked towards the hospital entrance. As she passed a secluded alley, she was suddenly ambushed from behind with a sack over her head. Before she could even scream, she was shoved and thrown into the alley. Immediately, countless fists and feet rained down on her. The attackers deliberately aimed for her stomach and vital spots. Grace curled up on the ground in pain, pleading for mercy, but they only hit her harder. After an unknown period, the sack was torn off, and several people held her head down, violently slapping her face. They continued until her face was swollen like a pillow. One of them took out a phone and began taking pictures of her. Mr. Pay, is this enough? Do you want us to hit her more? Grace's consciousness was already hazy, yet she clearly heard Marcus's voice, cold as ice. No need, this is enough to satisfy Tiffany. I just want her to learn her lesson. This is what happens when you cross Tiffany. After the group left, Grace lay on the ground for a long time. Suddenly, heavy rain poured down, mixing with the tears on her face. The thugs seemed to have known she had just had an abortion, specifically targeting her lower abdomen with kicks. The pain felt like it was tearing her insides apart. What suffocated her even more was the hollow feeling beneath her left abdomen, where she had donated a kidney to Marcus. It had always been her most carefully protected vulnerability. But that heavy kick just now made her whole body convulse with pain, taking a long time to recover. The old Marcus would frown and fuss over a mere scrape on her skin, full of concern, but the Marcus now could watch impassively as others beat her senseless, right after she had lost her child. Grace slowly stood up, leaning against the wall. She let out a self-deprecating laugh, her voice a murmur. Marcus, you're ruthless. Now I won't feel the slightest regret about taking back everything I've invested in you. Back home, she pulled out a thick stack of letters, long compressed and hidden under the bed. The papers fluttered out like snowflakes. Grace had a momentary lapse. For 3 whole years, she had written over 400 letters. In a daze, she recalled Marcus's words when he broke up with her. You don't know, before I met you, I met Tiffany first. She was my first love. Those 3 years of words fall short of my feelings. That feeling of being completely smitten, no one can replace that. When he said this, his eyes held an unconcealed adoration. But he didn't know that those words fall short of my feelings were all written by her. Grace snapped back to reality, dragging a large ceramic pot into the living room and dumping all the letters into it. Then, she lit a lighter. She watched as the vows and hopes of the past slowly burned to ashes in the flames. She opened a bottle of alcohol, tilted her head back, and chugged it down, then turned the TV volume to maximum. Not until all the letters were burned did Grace suddenly laugh, and as she laughed, tears started to fall again. The piercing sound of the TV drowned out the sound of the entryway opening. What are you burning? Marcus walked in, frowning, a paper bag from the pharmacy in his hand. His gaze fell on the fire pit, and his pupils constricted sharply. Are you insane? Lighting a fire indoors, trying to commit suicide? Grace's hatred flared, but her injury left her too weak to even get angry. She could only ask in a hoarse voice, what are you doing here? Marcus didn't answer. He first bent down to put out the fire, then reached out and lifted her onto the sofa. He lifted her clothes, saw the bruised back, and his hand paused. He wanted to touch it but pulled back, his eyes darkening. Don't blame me. It was for your own good. If the Lynn family found out about that slap you gave Tiffany, it wouldn't be just a beating. He squeezed the ointment into his palm, rubbed it, and carefully applied it to her injuries. Grace tried to pull away in disgust, but the movement tugged at her wounds, making her suck in a sharp breath. Just then, her father, Richard's voice, suddenly came from the TV. On the screen, he had just rang the bell at NASDAQ and was then surrounded by reporters, being interviewed about his entrepreneurial journey. Grace heard her dad's voice and abruptly looked up. Marcus noticed her movement and scoffed, pointing at the TV. That's Tiffany's father, and my future father-in-law. He adores his daughter. Tiffany is the apple of his eye. He paused, his voice carrying a hint of warning. If he knew you bullied Tiffany, with his influence, his word carries immense weight in Capital City. Destroying you would be a matter of minutes. Grace lowered her head, remaining silent, the bruises on her body faintly aching, her eyes slowly reddening. He still didn't know that the chairman, whom he called adores his daughter, was actually her own father. A flicker of something unreadable crossed Marcus's eyes, and he pointed at the fire pit again. So many paper scraps, what exactly were you burning? Grace shifted away, sneering. Just some worthless trash. Hearing this, Marcus's frown deepened. Are you trying to attract my attention by playing the suicide card? It won't work. Tiffany and my wedding is already set. All you're doing is making me dislike you more. Seeing with her head bowed, he softened his tone slightly. But if you're willing to change your awful temper, we could still be friends in the future. Tiffany is very kind, she'll accept you. Haha, Grace suddenly burst into laughter, tears almost streaming down her face from the absurdity. Every single word he had uttered since walking in was ridiculously laughable. Grace, you, Marcus. Grace suddenly grabbed the bottle from the table and smashed it hard over his head. Beer foam streamed down his forehead, soaking his expensive suit, making him look exceptionally distraught. Grace stared at him, a sudden clarity washing over her. The well-dressed, dignified man before her, exuding an air of nobility, was no longer the boy who would rather miss out on sponsorship than save a drowning puppy. Perhaps, the Marcus she loved had always been just a figment of her imagination. She raised the bottle, still half full, and pointed towards the door. "Get out of my house immediately. I never want to see you again in my life." "Ha, that awful temper of yours, I truly don't know who else but me could put up with it." Marcus stared at her fixedly for a few seconds, then coldly stood up, wiped the beer foam from his face, and left without looking back. That night, Grace was in pain all night and cried all night. But the next morning, she washed her face and transformed back into the energetic and decisive Lynn family heiress. She couldn't crumble, more important matters awaited her. She received a text message from the bridal shop, saying that the wedding dress customized for her from abroad had arrived today. In less than 3 days, she would be getting married to Liam. The family was very particular about appearances, especially Liam, her childhood friend, who was a notoriously sharp-tongued and particular Virgo, tolerating no imperfections. She had to personally oversee everything to ensure every detail was perfect. Grace hurried to the bridal shop and changed into the $1,000,000 wedding dress the Hayes family had specially customized for her. The skirt was adorned with tiny rhinestones, sparkling under the lights, and the surrounding staff couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, miss, you look absolutely stunning in this. It's a pity your fiancé isn't here, he'd be even more captivated if he saw you like this." Grace smiled faintly, took out her phone to take a selfie to send to Chloe, but then a sweet, melodious voice suddenly came from behind her. "Wow, this wedding dress is so beautiful, I want to try this one." Grace turned her head and saw Marcus, Tiffany, and his childhood friends all standing at the bridal shop entrance. Tiffany's voice was exceptionally excited, and she rushed over a few steps, eager to touch the rhinestones on Grace's wedding dress. "Don't touch my wedding dress with your dirty hands." Grace snapped, her voice cold and unceremonious. Tiffany's hand recoiled abruptly as if burned, and she turned to throw herself into Marcus's arms, her voice tearful. "Marcus, she's so mean. I just wanted to try on that wedding dress. I didn't mean anything else." When first saw Grace in the wedding dress, a barely perceptible hint of awe flashed in his narrow eyes, but that fleeting wonder was quickly replaced by gloom. He stepped forward, his tone accusatory. "Are you following me?" Hearing this, Grace gave a slight smirk, her voice flat. "Excuse me, I'm here for a wedding dress fitting." She paused, then added, "My wedding is in 3 days." As soon as she spoke, the bridal shop instantly fell silent. Tiffany's eyes immediately flashed with alarm. She looked up, tugging Marcus's arm. "Marcus, did you hear that? She's getting married in 3 days? But, isn't our wedding in 3 days? Is she trying to crash it?" Marcus's childhood friends also reacted, all rushing to Tiffany's defense, accusing Grace. "Hey, don't cause trouble. If you really dare to crash the wedding, we won't go easy on you." "Grace, I don't even know what to tell you. Why do you always act like an entitled heiress? Do you know how much Marcus has suffered because of you all these years?" "Exactly. She has an entitled attitude without the princess life. You're miles behind Tiffany." These people used to frequent Grace and Marcus's small home for meals, warmly calling her sister-in-law, but now they all sided with Tiffany, showing no hint of their past connection, and stood by, listening to his childhood friends chastising Grace, not saying a word to stop them. He just pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and watched her through narrowed eyes. "Didn't you say you never wanted to see me again in this life?" He took a drag, then slowly exhaled a smoke ring. "Grace, is this desperate clinging really worth it?" Grace's gaze fell on her pristine lace gloves, finding the accusations in her ears increasingly noisy and annoying. She looked up at Marcus, her tone still calm. "I'm sorry, nobody wants to cling to you. The person I'm marrying isn't you." Marcus seemed to hear a joke, letting out a soft scoff. "You can't even lie without sounding ridiculous. Fine, stop wasting time. Take off that wedding dress and give it to Tiffany." As soon as he finished speaking, a store assistant politely approached Marcus to explain. "Excuse me, sir, this wedding dress was air freighted from abroad and is exclusively custom made for Mississippi. And the gentleman who ordered the dress specifically instructed that no one but Miss herself is allowed to touch it." Marcus was silent for a moment, pondering the words exclusively custom made. He walked up to Grace, his 6'3" height exerting immense pressure. The tenderness of yesteryear was gone from his eyes, replaced entirely by cold suspicion, first an all-in bid at the auction house, now an exclusively custom-made wedding dress. Grace, why didn't I ever notice you were so capable before? With that, he suddenly grabbed Grace's wrist. Or rather, were you pretending all 7 years we were together? Let go. Grace struggled fear. Silly to break free, but his hand was like an iron clamp, unmoving. Just then, Tiffany came closer, her voice laced with feigned hurt. Marcus, let it go. Let her have this wedding dress. After all, as long as I have your love, I'd be happy even in an ordinary wedding dress. This kind of manipulative words made Marcus's childhood friends even more agitated, and their tone towards Grace became sharper. Tiffany is an heiress of the Lynn family, she shouldn't have to tolerate such humiliation. I don't think this wedding dress is a designer piece at all. Grace probably bought it from some cheap online store, a fake, just to put on a show. Grace's heart sank. Looking at the people surrounding her, she had a vague feeling something was wrong. Take it off. Marcus stared at her. His lips, which had once gently kissed hers, now coldly uttered a few words, "Don't make me do this myself." The next second, his childhood friends surrounded her, reaching out to tear at Grace's wedding dress. Grace's eyes widened in horror. What are you doing? This wedding dress is mine. What you're doing is illegal. Illegal? One of them sneered, we're just here to cure you of your entitled attitude. It's doing a public service. Chapter 7 Riot. Someone pulled a utility knife from the counter drawer. The blade slashed across the wedding dress's skirt, instantly tearing a large slit. Pearls and rhinestones clattered to the floor. The hoop skirt was stomped flat, and the thin lining couldn't cover her body. Grace was exposed on the spot. She fell to the ground, her hair disheveled, distraught and crying out for them to stop. But the people gathered around only laughed, and some even held up their phones to take pictures. Marcus stood by, his arm around Tiffany, coldly watching the scene unfold. Grace, if we don't teach you a lesson, you'll never change that awful temper of yours. Apologize to Tiffany right now, and I'll tell them to stop. The bridal shop attendants couldn't stand it anymore. They stepped forward to intervene but were roughly pushed away by Marcus's childhood friends. Mind your own business. She's messed with the heiress of the wealthiest Lynn family. Do you want to lose your jobs? Grace lay on the ground, looking up into Marcus's cold eyes. Her heart was pierced by ice, and even breathing was painful. Hatred burned in her eyes, and her fierce gaze made Marcus's heart skip a beat inexplicably. Marcus, you'll regret this. Regret? Marcus scoffed. The biggest regret of my life was spending 7 years with you. With that, he raised his hand, signaling them to stop. The group immediately stopped and followed him and Tiffany out. As they passed the doorway, they didn't forget to complain, this rotten bridal shop is bad luck. Let's go check out another one. The family owns a lot of businesses on this street. We'll pick one there, they're bound to have better options. The shop finally fell silent. Grace, still in her torn wedding dress, slowly squatted on the floor, carefully picking up the scattered pearls. An attendant knelt down to help her, sighing as she advised, Miss, I think you should just let this go. Ordinary people like us can't afford to offend the wealthiest family. This was the first time in Grace's life she had felt such profound injustice. She took out her phone, her trembling fingers dialing Liam's number. Her voice, when it came out, was already choked with tears. Liam, I'm sorry, the wedding dress. She couldn't finish her sentence, tears streamed down her face. It was ruined. On the other end of the line, Liam, who was usually sharp-tongued, didn't utter a single word of blame. He simply said in a low voice, I'll be right there. A few minutes later, Liam's car pulled up to the bridal shop entrance. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around Grace, then bent down and carried her into the car. The attendants peered out the doorway, watching the car drive away, chattering excitedly, that GUI just now was so tall and handsome. And it was a Bentley. His family must be incredibly wealthy. His expression wasn't very friendly though, and he looked quite intimidating. 2 days passed. Marcus hadn't received any news about Grace. He sat in his office, feeling restless, Grace's gaze from that day repeatedly flashing in his mind. Resolute, icy. Completely unlike the Grace he knew, who used to soften after an outburst, quietly cook his favorite dishes, and always be the first to make amends. He sighed, looking down at Tiffany in his arms, and asked casually, Tiffany, you've been back for so long, and I've never had the chance to visit your father. When would be a good time to meet him? Tiffany's face stiffened for a moment, then she forced a smile. My father is still on a business trip abroad. But you'll definitely see him at the wedding, I'll introduce you then. Marcus felt a hint of doubt, but didn't press further. He paused, then spoke again, oh, and let's have Grace be your bridesmaid. After all, she and I used to date. Having her attend the ceremony might help her finally give up on me. He actually had a hidden motive. Grace must be heartbroken this time. If she stood at the wedding in a bridesmaid dress, watching him and Tiffany's happiness, it might help her let go sooner and ease some of her pain. A wicked glint flashed in Tiffany's eyes, but she spoke softly, "Of course. I'd also like to receive Mrs. Blessings." Marcus let out a sigh of relief and gratefully ruffled her hair. "Thank you, Tiffany. You're always so kind." Tiffany sweetly agreed, but as soon as Marcus left, the smile vanished from her face. She pulled out her phone and sent a message, "Tamper with the bridesmaid dress we've prepared. I want Grace, that bitch, to be publicly humiliated at the wedding. The more embarrassing, the better. Meanwhile, when Marcus's phone call came through, Grace had just finished trying on her new wedding dress and getting her makeup done. A woman in the mirror, wearing a mermaid wedding dress covered in rhinestones, with radiant makeup, showed no trace of the distress from 2 days prior. On the phone, Marcus's tone was condescending. "Grace, come be Tiffany's bridesmaid on the wedding day. The family has extensive connections. If you come, you can broaden your horizons. Stop revolving around me all the time." He paused, then added, "And it'll prevent you from bothering me again in the future." Grace laughed. She replied sarcastically, "What a shame, I'm not available this time. Next time you get married, I'll definitely be there, and I'll even give you a generous cash gift." Before could get angry, she hung up and immediately blocked his number. Just then, Richard also sent a text message, "My dear daughter, Dad will go straight to the hotel tomorrow after landing to help you prepare for the wedding. With here, I promise you'll be the happiest bride tomorrow. Grace looked at the message, a brilliant smile curving her lips. She was about to become the center of attention as a bride. Why should she be someone else's bridesmaid? She looked at her radiant reflection in the mirror and whispered, "Tomorrow will certainly be spectacular." Chapter 8. Early on the wedding day, Marcus was already blocking Grace's doorstep. He knocked heavily on the door, his tone impatient. "Grace, you're quite the demanding bridesmaid, making me come pick you up personally? Get out here. The wedding starts in an hour, and I don't have time to waste with you." But after knocking for a long time, there was no sound from inside. Marcus's anger flared. He sneered, "Fine, playing dead, are we? Don't blame me for not giving you an easy way out." With that, he waved his hand dismissively, turned coldly, and left. On the way to the hotel, Marcus suddenly caught sight of a motorcade ahead. It was an impressive procession, led by a Bentley, followed by luxury cars like Maseratis, a grand display. His heart leaped with joy. He immediately slowed down and followed. He hadn't gone to pick up Tiffany that morning, and now he assumed this was the Lynn family's motorcade sent to pick up the bride. He thought to himself, sure enough, the wealthiest family's display is something else. When the motorcade stopped at the hotel entrance, Marcus instinctively hurried over, intending to greet Tiffany. But first to emerge from the Bentley were several bodyguards in black suits. Then, a bride, wearing a veil, gracefully stepped out of the car. Though her face wasn't clear, just by her posture, he knew she was undeniably beautiful. Tiffany. Marcus had just called out the name when a bodyguard blocked him with an outstretched arm. "Sir, please don't shout names indiscriminately." Marcus froze for a moment. Just as he was about to explain, "I'm the groom," a voice from behind him, one of his childhood friends, suddenly called out, "Marcus, what are you doing here? Tiffany's been waiting for you in the dressing room forever. Come on, let's go. The makeup artist is waiting to touch her up." His childhood friend said, pushing him towards the hotel entrance. Marcus paused, his footsteps faltering. He wondered, if is in the dressing room, who was the bride who just got out of the car? "Oh, by the way, Marcus," another childhood friend leaned over, a hint of disdain in his voice. "There's another wedding being held at this hotel today. Look at that motorcade earlier, their display was even grander than Tiffany's, and they booked the entire top floor. Probably some new money trying to put on a show. So tacky. Tiffany is much better, humble and mature." The childhood friends chattered away, and soon pushed Marcus to the dressing room door. Tiffany was already made up. She walked up to him in her wedding dress. "Marcus, do I look pretty today?" Marcus's gaze briefly skimmed her face. He gave a perfunctory, "Beautiful." But in his mind, he couldn't help but picture Grace in a wedding dress. That day at the bridal shop, standing under the lights in a custom-made wedding dress, she had looked so stunning it had momentarily dazed him. He suddenly felt a sense of bewilderment. He had married his unattainable crush, whom he had yearned for 7 years, yet a part of him felt empty, as if something was missing. When the MC came over to confirm the final run-through, Marcus couldn't help but ask, Tiffany, what about the 300 love letters we used to write? Tiffany's smile suddenly froze. What letters? The letters you anonymously exchanged with me 7 years ago, Marcus said, a hint of expectation in his voice. Didn't you say you kept them all? Didn't you bring them today? They're proof of our love. Tiffany gave an awkward laugh. Oh dear, there was so much to arrange before the wedding. I was so busy I forgot to bring them. I'll show them to you when we get home after the wedding, okay? A hint of disappointment swept through Marcus, but he didn't ask further. He turned and grabbed a childhood friend. Are all the bridesmaids here? Did anyone call Grace? Why isn't she here yet? His childhood friend rolled his eyes, annoyed. I called her. That woman is crazy, she just blocked my number. Marcus's heart sank. Even when Grace used to throw tantrums, she had never blocked his contact information. But this time, not only was his own number blocked, but even his childhood friends hadn't been spared, for a full 24 hours. This was too abnormal, completely unlike the Grace he knew. The childhood friend next to him suddenly slapped his thigh. Marcus, this is bad. Grace usually blows up at the slightest provocation. This time, you rejected her and made her lose face, and now there's no activity from her at all. She wouldn't be planning something big, waiting to crash the wedding later, would she? We can't let that happen, Marcus. Today is your big day with Tiffany. We absolutely can't let her ruin it. As his childhood friend spoke, Marcus's feelings suddenly became complicated. Grace hadn't come to be a bridesmaid. What was she doing right now? Would she really try to crash the wedding? Thinking this, his heart inexplicably quickened, and he even felt a faint sense of anticipation. Soon, the wedding officially began. Marcus stood on stage, his gaze sweeping over the guest seating below. He noticed that only Tiffany's mother was seated in the family section. The middle-aged woman was scanning a premium whiskey bottle for authenticity, and his father-in-law, Richard, had not appeared at all. He was about to turn and ask Tiffany when a commotion suddenly erupted at the hotel entrance. A server shouted loudly, "Hey, look downstairs. It's the wealthiest family's car. I heard Chairman flew back from abroad specifically for his daughter's wedding. He just gave a generous cash gift to all of us servers." The guests below instantly buzzed with excitement, all craning their necks towards the entrance. Marcus's heart surged with delight. He quickly told the MC, "Please pause the wedding for a moment. My father-in-law is here, I'll go greet him." Marcus, Tiffany suddenly reached out to stop him, but Marcus, thinking she was nervous, reassuringly patted her hand. "Don't worry. I'm just going to say hello to my father-in-law, I'll be right back." His face was filled with confidence. He didn't notice Tiffany's increasingly pale complexion at all. But after waiting a full 10 minutes at the hotel entrance, there was no sign of Richard. Marcus was puzzled when he saw a server descending the stairs, a cash gift clutched in their hand. He quickly stepped forward and called out to them, "Hey, where did you get that cash gift? Where is Mr. Richard? Why isn't he here yet?" The server glanced at him with disdain. "Oh, so you paused your wedding just to wait around for cash gifts? Don't wait, the cash gifts have already been distributed. Mr. Lin didn't come this way at all. He's on the top floor, attending his daughter's wedding." Marcus's mind went blank with a loud buzz. He staggered back half a step. "And no, that's impossible. Tell me, what's his daughter's name?" The server frowned, their tone even more dismissive. "What else would it be?" "Grace. It's already trending online, haven't you checked your phone? Chairman is famously devoted to his wife. His only daughter shares his wife's surname, Lee. Everyone in this circle knows that." Chapter 9. As those words fell, the world seemed to hit a pause button. "Say that again." Marcus's face was ashen. He grabbed the server's clothes. "What's the wealthiest family's daughter's name? Grace?" The name Grace was almost bitten out through his teeth. His childhood friends quickly gathered around, their faces filled with disbelief. "It can't be the Grace we know, can it? How is that possible? Isn't her mother a housekeeper for the Lin family?" "Marcus, don't listen to his nonsense. Grace probably wants to ruin your wedding and hired people to put on a show." The server, pained by his grip, impatiently shook his hand off. "You may not know the bride, but you should know Chairman, the wealthiest man, right? He's right there in the banquet hall upstairs. If you don't believe me, go see for yourself. But you don't have an invitation, do you? Then you can't go up. Unless you pretend to be a server delivering drinks to sneak in." The entire hall erupted in chatter. "What's going on? Isn't Tiffany the heiress of the wealthiest family?" "Exactly, we're here for the wedding of the Lin family's heiress. What is all this about? Could we have been scammed?" On stage, Tiffany's face had already turned ashen. She lifted the heavy skirt of her wedding dress and rushed over, abandoning all decorum. Marcus, we're still getting married. Get back here now. Tiffany's mother also shouted furiously. Son-in-law, stop this nonsense. Tiffany is standing here waiting for you. How can you be meddling in other people's affairs? Tiffany and her mother were nagging him, one on each side. Both of you, shut up. Marcus roared. The mother and daughter were startled by his shout. Tiffany's lips trembled. Marcus, you actually yelled at me. Don't you want to marry me anymore? Don't forget, you were the one who begged me to marry you. Tiffany pointed at Marcus, her crimson nails almost poking his face. Marcus's parents also walked over, worried, and whispered in his ear. Son, it's not easy for our family to marry into wealth with the wealthiest family. Is the wealthiest family's daughter Tiffany or Grace? Son, you must figure this out. Marcus, however, ignored them, his gaze somewhat blank. No, how could Grace be an heiress of the Lynn family? Logically, she should have come to crash the wedding today. She should be standing before him in a wedding dress, holding a bouquet, pleading him to reconsider. Seeing this scene, the guests grew even more boisterous with their discussions. Among the guests Marcus had invited, besides his parents, were many business partners from his company. These people were arrogant, having come to the wedding specifically for the heiress's reputation, hoping to network with Tiffany's father. But upon arrival, they found the wedding scale was too modest, and the food consisted of low-end catering from the hotel. This was crude in her speech and mannerisms, completely unlike a wealthy heiress. Moreover, her wealthiest father hadn't shown up since the wedding began. Mr. Pei, tell us, is your wife really the wealthiest family's heiress? Richard is upstairs. He wouldn't miss his daughter's wedding, would he? Unless isn't his daughter at all. People chattered back and forth, many had already gathered around him, demanding an explanation. Tiffany and her mother's faces grew uglier and uglier. Marcus, are you even a man? Are you just going to let them doubt me? Tiffany angrily pushed him. Marcus stiffly turned his head to look at her. Tiffany, you said you were the Lynn family's heiress. Where's your father? Is he here? Tiffany immediately began to stammer. My father is busy listing the company abroad, he hasn't returned yet. Is that so? Marcus sneered, the bell at Nasdaq was rung last week. Or are you completely unaware of that? Tiffany's face suddenly turned pale. The uneasy feeling and nervousness that flashed in her eyes already explained everything. Marcus no longer looked at her. He pushed through the gawking crowd and raced upstairs. When he saw the massive wedding portrait displayed at the entrance of the banquet hall, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The bride in the wedding portrait, smiling beautifully, her eyes curved, and a distinctive beauty mark below the corner of her mouth. That spot, he had kissed countless times. He would never forget it. It was Grace. Chapter 10 Move. He roared, about to charge in, but was firmly blocked by two tall bodyguards at the entrance. Sir, please show your invitation, otherwise you cannot enter. I need to see Grace. I have to talk to her. Marcus's eyes were bloodshot with urgency, and his voice was hoarse. Marcus, haven't you caused enough trouble? Tiffany, her face ashen, caught up to him, dragging her heavy wedding dress. You left me alone at our wedding, ran up here to find your ex-girlfriend? Do you want to humiliate me publicly? But had no mind to pay attention to her at this moment. He struggled like a trapped beast, trying to force his way into the banquet hall. The moment he finally burst inside, he froze completely. The banquet hall before him was twice the size of the venue downstairs, its opulence akin to a medieval European castle. The hall was filled with distinguished guests, all prominent figures seen in finance magazines and on television. Such a grand display was far beyond what an ordinary family could afford. In contrast, the relatives Tiffany had invited downstairs were mostly rural relatives, who immediately focused on the Maya L upon arrival. The two scenes were worlds apart. He should have noticed something was wrong much earlier. At this moment, the entire hall was silent. Marcus's pupils suddenly contracted, his gaze fixed on the end of the red carpet. Grace, in a custom-made wedding dress, looked like a fairy stepped out of a painting. She was arm in arm with a handsome, distinguished man. The man beside her was Liam, the only son of the powerful Hayes dynasty. The MC's voice came through the speakers. Miss, do you take Mr. Liam to be your husband, to love him, to honor him, in sickness and in health? I do. Grace's voice was clear and firm, her eyes brighter than the stars in the night sky. And the rumored prince looked down at her with doting eyes, and quietly spoke as well. I do. Then, the two exchanged rings and shared a passionate kiss amidst the applause. They were both so dazzling, a perfect couple, so well matched it made people envious. "Sir, please move aside. You're blocking the way." The voice from behind made Marcus instinctively step aside. A server pushed a luxurious cart past him. Marcus took one look and was greatly shaken. The cart was lavishly adorned with jewels, filled with rare treasures collected from all corners of the globe. Just a few small antiques were worth hundreds of millions. The MC took out one item and began to introduce it. This top-grade emerald, the bride's grandmother's favorite color in life, the groom specifically traveled through 3 countries to find it. And this imperial jade scepter pendant is worth hundreds of millions. It said the owner never parted with it, but was ultimately moved by the groom's sincerity, agreeing to exchange it for a luxury estate. These are all testaments to the groom's love for his bride. Many influential figures present began to praise, raising their phones to record. Liam, meanwhile, held Grace's hand and gently kissed the back of it. For, naturally, only the best will do. Grace's lips curved into a playful, proud smile. She took the microphone. "Actually, Liam and I have been childhood rivals, and we know each other best. Don't let his gentle and thoughtful demeanor now fool you. Just during the ring exchange and kiss, he secretly whispered in my ear that he was going to spank me tonight. Prince, I'll publicly tell you this, tonight is a playful brawl, and I won't go easy on you." A wave of good-natured laughter erupted from the audience. This was followed by fervent applause. Seeing this scene, Marcus's throat tightened. He felt an indescribable mix of emotions. "Grace!" He couldn't hold back any longer. He stumbled forward, calling her name in agony. Chapter 11. All eyes turned to him, looking at the uninvited guest in surprise. Marcus's eyes were bloodshot, and his voice was extremely hoarse. "Grace, explain to me clearly, what is going on here?" Grace wasn't surprised by his arrival. Instead, she held Liam's arm even tighter. Leaning her head on his shoulder, she looked utterly demure. "What do you mean, what's going on? What exactly do I need to explain to you? On my wedding day, you dare to come up and interrupt my wedding without an invitation? Are you sick or just ill-mannered?" Marcus was stunned. He had never imagined she would humiliate him so directly. His face flushed, then paled. "I just want to understand how Richard could be your father. Or are these people just actors you hired to deceive me?" "Actors?" Grace chuckled, as if she had heard the funniest joke. "Marcus, I think you're utterly absurd." The guests below looked at Marcus with increasing strangeness. Marcus was about to speak when a low, soft cough sounded. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried immense authority. The surroundings instantly fell silent. Everyone knew Chairman was about to speak. "Since you've come, consider yourself a guest." Richard slowly stood up, in a well-tailored dark suit, exuding a composed demeanor. "Perfect timing, it's also our turn, my wife and I, to say a few words." The wealthiest man, usually only seen on television, gently took his wife's hand beside him. She was wearing a custom-made cheongsam, with a gentle demeanor, and looked about 70 to 80% like Grace. She was Grace's mother, Eleanor, a renowned entrepreneur in Capital City, from a prominent family that had been wealthy for 3 generations. Compared to Tiffany's mother, she was literally worlds apart. The two stood beside Grace, the family of 3 looking so harmonious. Richard picked up the microphone, his voice clear and strong. "Ladies and gentlemen, today is the joyous occasion of my daughter Grace and Mr. Liam of the Hayes family. Thank you all for gracing us with your presence. My wife and I have been away for many years, and we owe our daughter a great deal. Fortunately, she has found someone she can entrust her life to. As parents, we don't have much to give, so we have established a $10 billion trust fund in our daughter's name, along with an undeveloped resort island. Consider it a small token of our affection." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the business partners present. "Furthermore, to our friends here who have partnerships with our family, my daughter Grace will gradually take over my businesses in the future. I hope you will all continue to support her in the industry." As his words fell, the guests below nodded in agreement, their attitudes respectful. A $10 billion wedding gift, an undeveloped island, and Lynn's words, all demonstrated his profound love for Grace. Grace appeared so composed, calm, with a faint smile on her lips. This unfathomable wealth, in her eyes, was so commonplace. Marcus instantly became background scenery, his legs so weak he could barely stand. His heart felt as if an invisible hand had clamped down hard on it, the pain making his vision blur. "Grace, tell me, this isn't real." He continued to delude himself. "I know you're angry that I'm marrying Tiffany. This people are all actors you hired, right?" Tiffany, who had been eavesdropping outside, couldn't take it anymore. She burst in, her hair already disheveled, looking like a madwoman. "It's all fake. What 10 billion, what island, they're all just bragging. Grace, you're a liar. These people must be actors you hired. You just want to break up Marcus and me. Marcus, don't believe her. Let's go back, the guests are getting impatient. Listening to the woman's frantic words, everyone in the hall changed expressions. Richard's gaze finally fell upon them. Young man, I have something to say to you. He stared at Marcus's face, as if trying to recognize him. I remember you. You were one of the disadvantaged students our family sponsored back then, weren't you? The boy from Silverwood. Richard's voice wasn't loud, but it clearly resounded throughout the hall. I heard my daughter dated you for a while before her wedding, and to keep her from bothering you, you generously gave her a $10 million severance payment? Chapter 12 $10 million. Hearing this number, someone in the audience couldn't help but laugh out loud. Even, standing next to him, curved her lips into a smile, showing no trace of a dignified lady's restraint. 10 million? That's quite a bit, Eleanor said, glancing playfully at Grace. The first thoroughbred foal I bought you when you were 18 cost about the same. The audience couldn't help but laugh again. Everyone knew that $10 million for the Lee family was just pocket money for Grace. Eleanor looked at Marcus, her eyes full of sarcasm. Young man, the money our Grace donates to charities every year is more than 10 million. Who are you trying to humiliate with this amount? Moreover, my daughter gave you her heartfelt devotion, yet you used money to insult her. Don't you know that the one thing our family doesn't lack is money? A thin sheen of cold sweat broke out on Marcus's forehead. He was so embarrassed he wished he could disappear into the ground. He looked deeply at Grace. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Oh, well, now you know, Grace said, her tone as cold as ice. You called me a materialistic woman, and disliked that I bargained over every penny with vendors at the market. But you didn't know that if I hadn't meticulously managed every cent, your meager salary would have left us starving. My private wealth management center brings in hundreds of thousands every minute. The money I earn in a single day is equivalent to your annual income. Yet, during our 7 years together, I never once lived lavishly in front of you. I stayed with you, living in a cramped apartment, eating instant noodles, and worked alongside you from nothing to achieving some success. But you? The moment you found that impostor who usurped my identity, you couldn't wait to dump me. The last trace of warmth vanished from her eyes. Had I known you would use this 10 million to humiliate me, I would have never sponsored you in the first place. My heartfelt devotion for those 7 years, calculated by the minute, was worth far more than $10 million. The audience couldn't help but start discussing. Who is this guy, daring to treat Miss like this? Mr. Lynn's gaze isn't friendly, this guy is in deep trouble. Every word Grace spoke was like a heavy hammer, striking hard at Marcus's heart. He suddenly realized. He should have realized much earlier that Grace was the heiress. The first time he met Grace, she was wearing a simple dress and canvas shoes, looking no different from a recent graduate. Yet, she could identify the brand of civet coffee beans instantly. At restaurants where the average cost was $4,000, she navigated with the familiarity of being in her own home. Not to mention, there was one time he asked her to accompany him to a client's home for tea. Grace remained calm throughout, but after the business discussion, she directly told Marcus that this client couldn't be trusted or a deep relationship. Marcus asked why. She said the antique vase and calligraphy and paintings displayed in the client's home were all forgeries, clearly bought for keeping up appearances. Such a superficial person was untrustworthy. She could also accurately state the age, value, and whether each collection piece had been to an auction house. Marcus's face fell instantly. How many antiques have you seen? Don't go around bragging, the client might get angry and end our contracts. Her face was filled with grievance. She mumbled softly, they are forgeries. The real ones are at my house. Marcus scoffed, gave her the cold shoulder for several days, and labeled her a liar in his mind. Now it seemed, everything had been evident all along. He was truly a blind fool. Marcus's heart ached instantly. So, if Grace was the Lynn family's heiress who had sponsored him, then those letters written over 3 years must have been written by Grace too. His thoughts were interrupted by Richard's question. I'm curious, who is that impostor? The authoritative voice pierced through the entire banquet hall. Tiffany trembled all over, about to turn and run. Bodyguards, grab her. Chapter 13. As the words fell, 2 bodyguards quickly restrained Tiffany. Let me go. Don't touch me. Do you know who I am? She was dragged back like a chicken, her wedding dress skirt dragging on the floor, torn by someone's foot. Don't touch my daughter. What are you doing? Tiffany's mother screamed and ran over, pointing at Grace's nose and cursing. You shameless hussy. Are you seducing my son-in-law? I'll beat you to death. Before her palm could land, a bodyguard forcefully twisted her wrist, making her shriek in pain like a pig. Ow! Murder! This little slut is not only seducing my son-in-law but also trying to kill me. But apart from her wails, the scene was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone broke out in a cold sweat for them. To dare to hit the wealthiest man's daughter right in front of him, this person was finished. Richard recognized them almost instantly. So it's you, Brenda. Richard narrowed his eyes, his voice authoritative. What, you're not a housekeeper anymore? Now you're bringing your daughter here to commit fraud? Brenda suddenly looked up. Why, you're Mr. Lin? Everyone in the audience suddenly understood, their eyes full of disdain. What an ungrateful wretch, daring to impersonate her employer to scam a marriage. We must remember the faces of this mother and daughter. Don't let them harm our families. This has such a sharp-tongued and particular look. How could she ever compare to the Lin family's heiress? Marcus's childhood friends were still outside the door. Seeing this scene, they all understood, each of them cowering like quails. Brenda's face was ashen. Mr. Lin, this is all a misunderstanding. I just came to ask my son-in-law to come back. Misunderstanding? Grace scoffed. You stole my $1 million designer outfit, let your daughter use my name to throw her weight around, and I have evidence for all of it. She then looked at her childhood friends by the door. I'll be filing lawsuits for everything you've done to me, too. I've never been a pushover, and I won't start now, Marcus. You'll get what's coming to you. With every word she spoke, Brenda and Tiffany's faces grew paler. Since it's your big day today, Grace continued, I'll give you a pass for now and call the police after your wedding. Grace's gaze returned to Marcus's face, a hint of mockery in her eyes. They say it's bad luck to break up a wedding, so you two deserve to be stuck together forever. Marcus's heart twisted in pain. No, Grace, Before he could approach her, a cool voice interrupted him. Liam took Grace's hand and gave Marcus a dismissive look. Don't embarrass yourself at my wedding, ex-boyfriend. Marcus stared fixedly at their clasped hands, his voice agitated. No, Grace. Today was supposed to be our wedding. This is all a misunderstanding. I mistakenly identified you, now everything is clear. Let's go back and get married right now. Marcus was convinced that Grace still loved him. Her quick marriage to Liam must be an arranged marriage for business, with no real affection. She was just trying to get a rise out of him. The next second, Marcus knelt on one knee, carefully presenting the diamond ring to her. This is the custom-made diamond ring for you, your favorite style. Grace's gaze lingered on the diamond ring for 2 seconds, then she chuckled. A look of disgust on her face, she snuggled into Liam's arms, acting flirtatiously. Honey, what do I do? He's actually flirting with me right in front of you. And his diamond is so tiny. Chapter 14. Marcus's lips trembled. Grace, how did you become like this? You used to be happy for ages even when I bought you a simple silver ring. He still remembered buying her a plain silver band with his first paycheck, and she cherished it for a long time. Grace sneered. You know that was back then, right? Back then, I poured my heart and soul into our relationship, and you still called me a gold digger. What, now that I've lived up to the gold digger label, you're suddenly nostalgic for the old me? Your diamond ring? I wouldn't even put that on my dog's collar, it's too small. Marcus's heart plummeted instantly. Liam chuckled, raising a hand to snap his fingers. 2 more bodyguards rushed forward, twisting Marcus's arms behind his back. Bodyguards, please escort the uninvited guests out. The wedding continues. Marcus and Tiffany and her mother were thrown out. The banquet hall doors closed, separating the festive atmosphere inside from the desolate silence outside. Marcus stood up stiffly, facing the doors like a statue. He stared longingly, but couldn't see inside, only faintly hearing laughter. Marcus's parents had also been outside, terrified by the bodyguards. They hadn't dared to go in, and now they were frantic. Son, that Grace is the rich girl. You were supposed to marry her. What do we do now? Should we go in and plead with them? You're really something, too. Why didn't you properly investigate Tiffany's identity before marrying her? I'm telling you, son, you're a golden boy, you must marry the wealthiest man's daughter. Annoying. Marcus just found it so annoying. Marcus, one of his childhood friends stammered, we hit Grace last time, and ruined her wedding dress. That wedding dress cost over $1 million. We not only offended her but also the Hayes family. Are we doomed? Marcus, say something, shut up. Marcus turned around and punched his childhood friend hard. Who told you to bully her that day? The friend was furious. You instigated it. You told us to rip off her wedding dress. Marcus abruptly pulled back his hand. Yes, it was all him. If it weren't for his instructions, how would these childhood friends have dared to bully Grace? His face was terrifyingly grim as he turned to stare at Tiffany. It was as if he had only just remembered that this vain, malicious liar was the root of all his problems. You dared to deceive me. He grabbed Tiffany by the throat. You bitch, it's all because of you. You ruined my relationship with Grace. Brenda stomped her foot anxiously. Let go of my daughter. She's your wife. Are you trying to kill your wife? Kill? Huh, why wouldn't he want to? Marcus recalled his initial meeting with Tiffany. At the time, he had cut off communication with the Lynn family heiress and fallen into a slump. Coincidentally, he then found out the address of the Lynn family estate. He didn't tell Grace, but went alone with gifts to visit the Lynn family, wanting to thank the Lynn family heiress properly. After ringing the doorbell, who should emerge from the door but Tiffany and her mother, carrying suitcases. Seeing in her expensive outfit, he instinctively assumed she was the Lynn family heiress. He was so nervous he stammered as he expressed his gratitude, but looked at him as if she didn't know him, rolling her eyes. Who are you? Get out of my way. Marcus was bewildered for a long time, attributing the problem to his own abruptness. After that, still unwilling to give up, he found someone to get Tiffany's contact information. After introducing himself, Tiffany still seemed indifferent to him. Yet, he continued to fawn over Tiffany. It wasn't until several years later, when his career gradually started to take off, that Tiffany changed from being indifferent to agreeing to date him. He asked her everything about the Lynn family, and she answered every question fluently, so he naturally never doubted her identity. Now, thinking about it, being deceived by such a materialistic gold digger was simply the greatest humiliation of his life. Shut up. Marcus slapped Tiffany hard. This is fraud, marriage fraud. And you want me to marry you? Look at yourself, you're not worthy. Saying this, he slapped her repeatedly, brutally disfiguring Tiffany's face. Tiffany cried hysterically, Marcus, are you even a man? Why didn't you think about this when we were together? I only hid my identity because I loved you too much. How could you do this to me? Tiffany's makeup was smeared, brown eyeshadow mixed with sweat running down her face, making her look like a distraught ghost who hadn't eaten in days. Marcus didn't even glance at her, fleeing the hotel as if escaping. Marcus, stop right there. She rushed to chase him, but was blocked by Marcus's parents at the elevator. Marcus's mother raised her hand and slapped her hard. You jinx. If it weren't for you, my son would have been the wealthiest man's son-in-law. You must compensate us for our losses, or you're not leaving. No sooner had she spoken than another group of people arrived. Tiffany, give us back the cash gifts we gave you. Yeah, we all know now, you're just a fraud who committed marriage fraud. We thought you were the wealthy man's daughter and gave you a generous cash gift. Give us back our money, or we're calling the police. Chapter 15. The scene erupted into chaos, with everyone demanding Tiffany return their money. The childhood friends exchanged glances. To impersonate the wealthiest man's daughter, Tiffany had intentionally not invited her rural relatives. She had invited many strangers to serve as guests, just to keep up appearances. Many of these guests had heard the wealthiest man's daughter was getting married and came to witness the spectacle. She had even spread rumors in a WhatsApp group chat that anyone who gave a cash gift of over $10,000 would receive chairman's autograph, and the opportunity to dine with chairman was being hyped for $100,000. She intended to profit from this, but she never imagined that on the very same day, she would crash the real heiress's wedding and be utterly humiliated. Police sirens soon sounded downstairs. Tiffany and Brenda adamantly refused to return the money, even getting into a fight with the guests. The scene was a chaotic mess of shouting, cursing, and wailing. Eventually, everyone was arrested and taken to the police station. Marcus drove dejectedly, wandering aimlessly until he unknowingly arrived at the apartment he had once shared with Grace. He clutched the spare key, his hand trembling so badly he missed the keyhole several times, trying repeatedly until he finally opened the door. The property manager had said that Grace had listed the apartment for a fire sale price with a real estate agent 3 days ago. She had said, I don't want anything to do with a place that holds memories of that scumbag. I'd sell it for $1. But she was in a hurry for her wedding, so she hadn't had time to clear things out. As the door opened, the faint smell of burnt paper from the last time still lingered in the air. Marcus frantically started ransacking the place, but unfortunately, after searching for a long time, he found nothing. Grace hadn't taken much. Her everyday loungewear was neatly stacked in the closet, and the humidifier she had bought last week still sat on the table. She hadn't even taken the succulents they had once raised together. Luckily, succulents thrive in dry conditions, so they hadn't withered yet. Everything seemed unchanged, yet everything had changed. Marcus wasn't looking for these things. He had searched everywhere but couldn't find the letters that held 3 years of their relationship. His legs gave out, and he collapsed heavily onto the floor. Grace, do you still have those letters? Marcus's heart leaped with a glimmer of hope. Yes, Grace must still have feelings for him, she must have secretly saved those letters. After 10 years of shared emotions, he refused to believe Grace had simply moved on. He had to find Grace and confirm this. But just as he was about to leave, his eyes fell upon the large ceramic pot on the balcony. Marcus's legs moved uncontrollably towards it, his heart inexplicably beginning to pound. He wanted to know what she had burned that day. The ceramic pot was filled with black ashes, the remnants of burnt paper. He didn't care about the grime. Without even rolling up his sleeves, he plunged his hand in. His fingertips brushed against a slightly firm piece of paper. He picked it up and recognized the incredibly familiar handwriting. It was from the letter he had written to the Lin family heiress years ago. I hope we can always be as purely captivated as we were when we first met. Marcus gazed fixedly at the line, his heart feeling as if it had been punched hard. After a long while, he let out a heart-wrenching wail. Wrong, everything was wrong. Memories, like a dam breaking, instantly flooded him. If it had been Grace from the beginning, then all these years she had hidden her identity as an heiress and stayed by his side. She had huddled with him in a cramped apartment, eating instant noodles, yet deliberately sigh. She didn't like meat, putting the only piece of beef into his bowl. She had repeatedly humbled herself before clients with him, and even though she had an alcohol allergy, she would drink for him. She had used inexpensive hand cream to heal the chilblains on her hands during the harsh winter, crying silently under the covers at night, yet never once complaining the next day. Even without the identity of the Lin family heiress, such a wonderful girl should have been cherished and loved. But what about him? He compared Tiffany to her, scoffed at her volatile temper, laughed at her for being materialistic and calculating, and complained to his childhood friends that she was like a nagging wife. In his heart, he thought she was marrying above her station, dismissing her with 10 million, and saying she was only after his money. He repeatedly hurt her for that liar, Tiffany, even hiring people to beat her. He saw that the letters of 3 years of affection, letters he had once treasured, had not escaped being burned. Only at this moment did he realize what a jerk he had been. Thud. Marcus couldn't stand it anymore and collapsed heavily onto the floor. Grace, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. His heart felt as if a hand was savagely clutching it. He cried and laughed, then slapped himself hard, but felt no pain. Because at this moment, his heart ached 100 times more than his face. Chapter 16. The wedding fiasco had already gone viral online. At the time, the Lin family had invited many entertainment reporters, who livestreamed the wedding, fully exposing Marcus and Tiffany's shameful antics. Enthusiastic netizens doxed them both, taking to social media to criticize them. This woman has some nerve, impersonating chairman's daughter? And she's a housekeeper's daughter, TSK, not afraid of being humiliated in public. That scumbag is disgusting. What he loved wasn't a person, but the heiress's status and wealth, haha. Everyone, avoid at all costs. Be careful. I don't re-enter the market and harm others. Some even dug up that Tiffany had previously been little homewrecker multiple times, meddling in other people's families, and had even been arrested for a honey trap scam. These scandalous details were like a series of slaps, stinging Marcus's face. Marcus's company's business partners overnight ended contracts with him. No one wanted to offend the Lin family for an insignificant person like him, but didn't care if his company went bankrupt or his reputation was ruined. He had only one thought now: find Grace, apologize to her, and then win her back. The next morning, he drove to the Lin family villa. At the villa gates, he adjusted his collar, his breathing erratic from nervousness. The ashes of the letters from the ceramic pot, he had put into a small glass vial and carried with him. Grace, come down, I have something to tell you. He shouted for a long time until finally, the gate opened. A housekeeper came out, her face showing annoyance at having her peaceful sleep disturbed. It's only 7 o'clock. What are you yelling about so early in the morning? Marcus grasped at her like a drowning man clutching at a straw. Please, let me see Grace, I have something to tell her. The housekeeper immediately recognized him, looking at him with disdain. Oh, it's you. Don't waste your time. Our young madam has already left for her honeymoon with her husband. And they went by private jet, so even if you had wings, you couldn't catch them. The gate was slammed shut. Marcus's mind went blank. His hands dropped limply to his sides, the small vial containing the letter ashes trembling with his own shaking. Yet, he was powerless. Morning, at an estate in France. Sunlight streamed onto the bed, warm and inviting. Grace rolled over in bed, just about to stretch, but found her whole body ached with soreness and stiffness. "Liam," she said through gritted teeth, kicking the man's calf beside her. "Look at what you've done. I can barely move now." She cursed his lack of restraint, he had nearly broken her back. The man's handsome eyes narrowed slightly, his voice deep and pleasant. "I wonder which silly goose insisted on having a drinking contest with me last night. You have to honor the deal." "You." Grace, both angry and shy, couldn't help but lean in and bite his lips. "You won't be so smug then, I'll have you begging for mercy in a little while." But this only ignited his passion. Liam's eyes darkened, and he instantly rolled over, pinning her back into the blankets. Grace's face flushed, and her heart pounded. The room was filled with intimacy. By the time she fully woke up, it was already afternoon. Grace had a late brunch and sat at the table, idly scrolling through the news. Her wedding livestream was trending online. Sensational from the Lynn heiress's wedding, a hot symbol was displayed prominently beside it. Pfft, what's so sensational about it? It's not my embarrassment, anyway. Grace rolled her eyes indifferently, looking down to continue eating the noodles Liam had cooked. The seafood noodles were rich and delicious, without green onions or cilantro, and he had thoughtfully picked out all the ginger slices for her. She ate until her stomach felt warm and content. She looked up at the man busy in the kitchen, wearing an apron, and her heart swelled with warmth. She had been with Marcus for so many years, yet he had never cooked her a single meal, not even made her a bowl of instant noodles. In contrast, Liam had remembered her preferences and dietary restrictions all these years. She and Liam had known each other since childhood, friendly rivals who had argued endlessly. At first, she had harbored a faint, budding affection for Liam. In school, Liam was a star student, well-connected and handsome. Their families were long-standing family friends, a perfect match. She had secretly watched Liam's back, her heart racing. But they both had sharp tongues that could poison anything they touched, and they'd inevitably start bickering after 3 sentences. Until high school graduation. Before she could confirm her feelings, Liam's family moved overseas, without even a proper goodbye. This meant he didn't like her at all. The proud young madam couldn't stand being slighted like that. She decisively cut off all contact, and 10 years passed in a flash. It was then that Marcus appeared, perfectly timed. He had an aloof, scholarly air, completely different from Liam. Grace, holding a grudge, was inexplicably driven to fall in love with Marcus, burying Liam's name deep in her heart. It wasn't until her marriage was set, and Liam returned to the country that day, rescuing her from the bridal shop where she was being bullied, that she finally understood. Years ago, Liam had left without a word because his family had suffered a sudden crisis. His illegitimate children had sprung up like mushrooms after a rain, fiercely fighting over the family fortune, even nearly turning deadly. To avoid implicating the Lynn family, Liam had chosen to leave Grace in such a painful way. "But you couldn't even write me a letter? Do you know how much I missed you?" Grace's eyes instantly welled up, her voice growing softer and softer. "I thought you'd never talk to me again." Seeing pouting, Liam sighed softly and pulled her into his embrace. "I saw you that day you came to the airport to see me off. You were curled up in a tiny ball, squatting on the ground. My heart tightened painfully, but I couldn't turn back to hug you. Every mistake was mine. You can punish me for a lifetime, I'm at your mercy." He had actually been keeping an eye on her situation during his years abroad. The day she fell for Marcus, his heart sank, and he was sad for a long time. Watching her live in a small apartment for that good-for-nothing Marcus, seeing her selling goods at a flea market in the bitter cold to help him start his business. Liam's heart was twisting in agony, but there was nothing he could do. He knew Grace's temper too well. If he interfered with her relationship rashly, she would surely get angry and might even hate him more. Thankfully, now, everything was finally set right. They could finally be happy together. Grace hummed softly in his arms, her tone becoming a little flirtatious. "You let that scumbag waste so many years of my life, I'm furious. I'll punish you by making you protect me for a lifetime. And never leave again." Chapter 17. The couple traveled all over the world, filming various sweet vlogs. Grace posted them online and quickly gained a huge following. "This is how an heiress should live. Congrats to our queen for ditching that jerk. Sister, you must truly love yourself and never lose yourself for love. You look even more beautiful now than before. Keep it up." Grace looked at herself in the mirror, her face was radiant, and her eyes sparkled with happiness. The netizens were right, leaving the wrong person makes you better. And she should have known that all along. In high spirits, she gave cash gifts on social media. She gave away several $1 million, and her social media followers went crazy scrambling for cash gifts. Ah, our young madam is so powerful. Wow. Is this the charm of chairman's daughter? Giving away so many cash gifts at once. I declare that from now on, I am our young madam's loyal follower. The netizens were so sweet. Delighted, Grace held several big raffles, with luxury cars like BMWs and Mercedes as prizes. The biggest prize pool even included a luxury home in the suburbs of Seaside City. This wasn't just a raffle, it was a full-on fan appreciation event, which left the netizens speechless. Grace also hosted a live stream. In front of the camera, she was all smiles, interacting warmly with her fans. Thank you, my dear followers, for your love. Welcome everyone to participate in the raffle. She also shared many travel experiences in the live stream, and her interact tie-in with netizens was very active. Netizens commented that this was what a true heiress was like, cultured, generous, and approachable. Some even immediately dug up Tiffany's previous live streams when she pretended to be chairman's daughter. Tiffany was very artificial, arrogantly telling her fans to send her gifts or they wouldn't be allowed into her fan club. Now, it was clear she was using the identity of chairman's daughter to scam money. Grace looked at this evidence, a cold sneer forming on her lips. Thank you, my dear followers, for providing the evidence. Don't worry, everyone, I've already notified the live streaming platform's backend to permanently ban her account, and all the previous donations you gave her can also be recovered. Don't ask why, this app is invested by my family, so I can make these decisions. Hearing this, netizens instantly erupted, praising Grace as powerful and dominant. The cheerful atmosphere abruptly stopped when an ID appeared in the livestream. Marcus, under the ID Marcus Loves Grace, sent several rocket gifts in the livestream. Grace's smile instantly vanished. How annoying. My dear followers, there's some trash in the livestream. We won't stream anymore. I'm off to get my beauty sleep with my husband, hee. She quickly exited the livestream. Her phone was flooded with text messages, like a tide. They were all from Marcus, begging to see her, writing countless lengthy apology messages and confessions. Grace found it annoying and dragged his number into her blacklist. A few more days passed. These days, she resumed her life as chairman's daughter. She did whatever she pleased every day. Her only business was continuing to invest the money she had earned. She was also blessed with luck, having had funds from her father since she was 18. But she had never squandered it. Instead, she had double majored in finance and law, diligently expanding her father's business portfolio. So even if she spent her days relaxing, she could still net over $100 million annually. The more Grace thought about it, the more she felt she had lost her mind, wasting her prime youth loving a scumbag. Madam, there's a man at the gate looking for you. A housekeeper rushed in to report. No matter how much we tried to drive him away, he wouldn't leave. He says he'll wait until you're willing to come out. Should we call the police, madam? Grace pulled back the curtains to look. Marcus stood at the gate, the blazing sun scorching his face, his clothes soaked with sweat. A few minutes later, she stood before him, holding an umbrella. Spit it out. Grace, you're finally willing to see me. I wasn't willing to see you at all. I just didn't want you to die at my gate and defile my property. Marcus was deeply moved, even with Grace cursing at him crudely, he was happy. I know you're angry with me, but it's always been you I love. Whether it was you with whom I exchanged letters for 3 years, or you who stayed by my side for 7 years. Think about it carefully, I didn't betray you. I always loved the heiress who dominated all my memories, and that was you. He wished this was a dream, and that when he woke up, Grace, who belonged to him, would still be by his side. Grace looked down in silence, lost in thought. Grace, Marcus choked up, pulling out the small glass vial. These are the ashes of the letters you burned. I put them in here, and I will keep them forever. We broke up because of a misunderstanding. If you had told me the truth from the beginning, how could we have missed out on this? Grace had been thinking of how to curse at him. Hearing his words, she let out a bitter laugh. Marcus, are you saying this is all my fault? Chapter 18. Marcus's breathing hitched. That's not what I meant. I don't want to blame you. I just can't accept that we should miss out on this. Marcus, you really haven't disappointed me. Grace gazed deeply into his eyes, but she could no longer find the shadow of the young man he once was. If you truly loved the so-called heiress of the Lynn family, why were you with me in the first place? Does emotional infidelity not count as infidelity? You harbored someone else in your heart, yet enjoyed my companionship and love. What kind of hypocrisy is that? The most tragic part is, Grace's laughter was laced with bitter sarcasm. I originally planned to announce my identity on the day of our wedding. I had compiled over 400 letters into a PowerPoint presentation. I wanted to give you a surprise. What a pity, we simply weren't meant to be. The light in Marcus's eyes flickered, then died. Grace's eyes were filled with coldness and mockery, devoid of any of the love she once had for him. His heart felt like it was being pricked by countless needles, a throbbing, bleeding agony. I'm sorry, Grace, it's all my fault. He clutched her sleeve tightly, like a drowning man clutching at a straw. You can hit me, curse at me, make me repay you for a lifetime, but you can't leave me. He practically roared the last sentence. Grace's lips curved into a bitter smile. It's too late. The moment I had that abortion, there was no longer any possibility for us. A sudden crash. Marcus felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. Something seemed to explode in his mind. A child. He suddenly remembered that day, when he accompanied Tiffany for her checkup. Grace had also had an abortion at the hospital. So that child was mine? His lips trembling, his voice a shaky whisper. Seeing's cold and angry eyes, he understood everything. Instantly, he broke down. The lover he desired most was right there, yet he hadn't noticed her for 7 years. He could have had a child with her and lived a happy life, but now everything was gone. He was truly the most foolish man in the world. Marcus forgot how he left that place. He wandered aimlessly, eventually finding himself on a river bridge. Grace and I had a child. Ch. Dad misses you so much. He repeated this phrase over and over, like a madman, causing passers-by to glance at him with concern. Looking at the surging river below, a sudden urge to jump into the water welled up inside him. His phone suddenly vibrated violently. Marcus, hurry and save me. The police took me away. Marcus paused, then immediately received a call from the police, stating that his wife was accused of theft, fraud, and defamation, and he needed to go to the police station immediately to cooperate with the investigation. Marcus quickly arrived at the police station. Tiffany was sobbing uncontrollably and repeatedly cursed at the police. The 2 officers looked at him sympathetically. We received an emergency call from a victim claiming that your wife, Tiffany, impersonated chairman's daughter online to scam money. We need to know if you were aware of her actions or involved in them. Marcus felt incredibly fatigued. No, I was never involved in any fraud. As for her actions, they have nothing to do with me. Arrest her if you must, sentence her if you must. His cold words immediately silenced Tiffany's wailing. She stared blankly at Marcus, as if looking at a stranger. After a long while, she spoke in a trembling voice. Marcus, you can't be so heartless. My mom has already fled with what little money she had left, and I only have you. You have to help me. Now, she was alone and helpless. Brenda, seeing that Marcus despised her, had long since fled with what little money she had left, and Marcus's parents, hating her for ruining Marcus's chance at unfathomable wealth, had disowned her. She had no one left to rely on but Marcus shook his head, his eyes dull and lifeless. Not for long. I've already filed for divorce. He believed that only by becoming single again could he regain Grace's love. Tiffany, being deceived by someone like you is my bad luck. Tiffany's eyes widened in disbelief. How can you divorce me? You were begging me to be your wife. You're mistaken, Marcus said, standing up, with a hint of disdain in his eyes. I've only ever pursued one person all these years. And that's Grace. If you hadn't usurped her place and deceived me, she and I would have been married long ago, and our child would have been born by now. Tiffany fell silent, tears welling up in her eyes. After a long pause, she spoke softly. Don't forget, I'm also pregnant with your child. If you don't save me, you'll end up childless. Chapter 19. As her words fell, Marcus remained silent, his fists clenched and unclenched. Seeing this, Tiffany patiently continued to persuade him. Marcus, our relationship hasn't broken down, after all, and the court won't grant a divorce easily. You help me fix this, and I'll give you a child. Then we can live a good life together. A bitter smile played on Tiffany's face. Marcus stood up, looking at Tiffany as if she were trash. How can I be sure that the child you're carrying is mine? As his words fell, the surroundings became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Tiffany trembled, looking at him in disbelief. You're actually doubting my child? Are you even a human, Marcus? Marcus calmly retorted, you've been with so many men, who knows whose child you're carrying? How about we do an amniocentesis now and see if it's my child? Tiffany's face instantly changed, and she stammered for a long time. Marcus had already left in long strides. The sounds of crying and yelling continued behind him, but he paid her no mind. He didn't know how Tiffany eventually paid back the money. He hadn't been home these past few days. After the wedding fiasco, his company's reputation was severely damaged, and the staff had been cut to a third of its original size. He was now busy focusing on his career. Only if his career flourished would Grace return to him. The only trouble now was Tiffany, who was constantly staying at his house and causing a huge scene. Marcus avoided her, so she hired a private investigator to find him. Early one morning, she camped out downstairs for Marcus's company, shouting into a megaphone, "Marcus, you scumbag, get out here. I'm pregnant with your child, you have to take responsibility and pay child support. Otherwise, I'll sue you in court for child abuse." Passers-by stopped to watch the scene. Tiffany had been trending online before, so everyone recognized her as the fraud who impersonated Chairman's daughter. They began to mock her. "Isn't this Chairman's daughter? How did she end up begging a man for child support? Didn't Chairman just give his daughter a $10 billion trust fund 2 days ago? What, you didn't get any money?" Tiffany's face was pale with anger, but she didn't dare to retort a single word. She could only continue to call out to Marcus. Marcus's face darkened as he snatched the megaphone from her hand. "Are you crazy? Get out of here." "I won't go." Tiffany defiantly jutted out her pregnant belly. "My baby is 5 months old, and I've had the amniocentesis. It's your child, and you have to take responsibility." Marcus's left eyelid twitched. "I won't acknowledge it. Your child has nothing to do with me." He shoved Tiffany without a shred of mercy. As fell to the ground, she still instinctively protected her stomach. The child was her only leverage, and she dared not harm it. Seeing this, Marcus just smiled coldly. "Trying to manipulate me with a child, how foolish. Even if you give birth to this child, I will absolutely not acknowledge it, because I will only ever want Grace's child." As his words fell, the onlookers couldn't help but gloat. Little homewrecker is so pathetic. She schemed so hard to get ahead, only for him to just abandon her. "If I were her, and I ended up like this, I'd have ended it all a long time ago." Tiffany broke down, sobbing on the ground. Just then, an interview played on the jumbotron above. "Miss, we hear you're planning a new development project on an island?" Hearing the familiar voice, Tiffany abruptly looked up. Grace, in a beautiful designer gown, was being interviewed by reporters. On the screen, she smiled gracefully, looking so elegant and beautiful. "Yes, thanks to my parents, who have always quietly supported me. I've scouted the island, it's beautiful and fertile, perfect for a vacation. I plan to build a large amusement park there. Once the project is complete, I'll be sure to let everyone know right away." All of this pricked Tiffany's fragile nerves, the malice in her eyes practically overflowing. "How can you live such a perfect life? Everything you have should be mine." She lowered her gaze, a glint flashing in her eyes. Then, she staggered to her feet and slowly merged into the crowd. Chapter 20. Grace was studying the proposal her assistant had submitted. Dad had previously mentioned that the island he bought for her was ready for development, and if the project succeeded, the future profits would be immeasurable. She planned to build a large amusement park on the island, and her father had already built a villa there for her, where she could vacation. After a long moment, Liam quietly approached and gently massaged her shoulders. The pressure was neither too light nor too heavy, yet it made her feel incredibly comfortable. "So, the heiress is finally getting down to business today?" Grace scoffed. "Do you expect me to live a life of luxury doing nothing forever? I wouldn't dare. I was always going to build my career." Liam chuckled indulgently. Yes, the heiress is building her career. I suppose I'll have to rely on you to support me from now on." Jokes aside, he immediately hired the nation's most reputable construction team and amusement park designers, preparing everything for Grace. Grace felt a deep sense of gratitude. She finally realized that someone who truly loves you is like an indestructible fortress, always there for you to lean on. 3 months flew by. The amusement park was now under construction. Grace was actively recruiting investors domestically, enjoying every moment of her busy schedule. That evening, after dinner with an investor, she suddenly received an anonymous phone call. "Grace, long time no see." Grace froze, instantly recognizing the voice. It was Tiffany. She unconsciously slowed her pace. "Are you calling for something?" "Heh, Grace, you're still so arrogant. You know I'm pregnant with Marcus's child, right? I'm 5 months along." Tiffany's voice was faint, laced with resentment. "But refuses to acknowledge his own flesh and blood and is even filing for divorce. Who do you think is to blame for that?" Grace's temper flared, she was about to lash out. But then she remembered the person on the other end was pregnant, and if she provoked a miscarriage, Tiffany might blame her. Miss Grace took a deep breath, her voice calm. What happens between you and Marcus has nothing to do with me. Don't call me again. How can it have nothing to do with you? Tiffany's voice suddenly sharpened. If it weren't for you, Marcus wouldn't have abandoned me. This is all your fault. Why did you have to choose the same day and the same hotel as me for your wedding? If it weren't for you, how would Marcus have discovered the truth? You think you're so noble, but you just got lucky with your birth. Deep down, you're nothing but a homewrecker who stole another woman's man. Tiffany cursed Grace uncontrollably. Grace grew increasingly angry, letting out a cold laugh. Marcus and I ended things a long time ago. As for your grievances, I'm not interested in hearing them. Tiffany fell silent. If you spread any more rumors, I won't hesitate to sue you. Oh, and you still owe me money, I believe. Grace was about to hang up, but suddenly spoke, then let's burn everything down. If I jump from your company building with my child, killing 2 lives, what do you think that would do to your reputation? Grace's heart tightened instantly. What are you going to do? The other end finally chuckled. 10 minutes. Get to your company's rooftop immediately, or I'll jump right now. The call was abruptly disconnected. Grace's heart pounded. Tiffany was truly a lunatic. Without delay, she rushed to the company building, where she saw a large crowd gathered below, gazing up. Among them were several TV reporters and cameramen. The moment Grace stepped out of her car, she became the center of attention. She looked up, faintly spotting a figure on the rooftop. It was Tiffany. Miss, did you threaten Tiffany, leading her to attempt suicide on the rooftop? There are rumors that you were the one who interfered in their relationship first. Is that true? Miss claims you threatened her not to have the baby, and that her depression is also your fault. Is this true? Camera flashes stung her eyes, and sharp questions pricked like needles. Grace took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. Mr. Marcus and I have no relationship whatsoever, and those rumors are all nonsense. Excuse me, I need to go up. The reporters didn't seem ready to let her go, still blocking her path completely. Just then, the crowd parted automatically. Marcus strode forward, shielding her behind him. Everyone, move aside. Chapter 21. The reporters were momentarily stunned by his grim expression and instinctively took a few steps back. Marcus's gaze fell on Grace's face, his voice tinged with cautious flattery. Grace, are you all right? Grace's tone was indifferent. Thank you, Mr. Marcus, but the situation is urgent. You should deal with your wife first. She walked past him and quickly entered the elevator, never once looking back. Marcus watched her resolute back, the pain in his heart spreading through his entire body. But he didn't hesitate and immediately followed her. He knew Tiffany always harbored ill intentions, but he never expected her to target Grace this time. Grace! Marcus couldn't help but call out to her. I'm sorry, I handled this poorly. Grace paused. Marcus, this is between you and Tiffany. You don't need to apologize to me. We settled everything a long time ago, didn't we? Settled everything. These 2 words were like a knife, plunging deep into Marcus's heart. His breath caught, his voice so quiet it was almost inaudible. But I don't want to be done with you. Grace didn't look back, walking straight out of the elevator. On the rooftop, the strong wind tousled the stray hairs across her forehead, making it almost impossible to see clearly. But, dressed in a conspicuous white dress, was perched on the rooftop wall, her legs dangling. Seeing the 2 of them arrive together, Tiffany's face instantly twisted with rage. Marcus, why didn't you answer my calls? But this bitch just beckons, and you come running. How could you be so shameless? Marcus took a step forward, extending his hand to her. Although the hatred in his eyes was almost overflowing, his voice carried a hint of pleading. Tiffany, stop this nonsense, you're still pregnant, get down now. Tiffany's face showed the triumphant glee of having gotten her way. Do you even care about the baby? You're clearly divorcing me. She placed a hand on her stomach but began to lean further outward. I was going to talk to Grace, but you 2 just had to flaunt your affection in front of me and annoy me, so there's nothing left to discuss. The crowd below had already grown, and gasps rose as they saw her actions. Grace, having seen the surveillance on her way, had already called 911. Fire and rescue were downstairs, with an inflatable crash mat ready. Tiffany, Grace stepped forward, her voice calm. No matter what happens between you and Marcus, you have a child as a bond. Please come down. Don't do anything impulsive that you'll regret. At that moment, a gust of wind disheveled Tiffany's hair, making her look even more deranged. Her eyes, filled with jealousy and hatred, fixed on Grace. Grace, it's easy for why. Oh, you to say. Do you have any idea what I've been through? These past few months, your fans have cyberbullied me, I'm deep in debt, and my mom doesn't want me anymore. But how can you live such a comfortable life? You have billions, and your father bought you an island. But I don't even know who my real father is. Enough, Marcus snapped. Get down now, I'm done wasting my breath on you. No, not unless you promise to live with me properly. And you must sever all ties with Grace permanently. And you, Grace, you've ruined my life, you must pay me $1 billion in compensation. Marcus was radiating anger, but Grace's voice calmed him down. Don't provoke her. Just talk to her calmly. Instantly, Marcus felt a pang in his chest. Tiffany, please, stop this. Nothing good will come from making a scene for any of us. Tiffany, however, seemed to hear nothing. I don't care. You must agree to transfer all your assets to me, and make Grace kneel and apologize, or I'll jump. Grace and Marcus exchanged a look. I can agree to your terms, but $1 billion is a big claim. You'll at least need to come down and sign a contract with me, won't you? Chapter 22. Hearing the word contract, Tiffany paused, seemingly deep in thought. She looked at Grace hesitantly. Grace, are you really willing? I can't wait to get rid of you and this trouble, Grace said without hesitation. Provided you promise never to bother me again once you've taken the money. A flicker of greed crossed Tiffany's eyes. She then looked at Marcus, urging him to declare his stance. Marcus said gravely, Tiffany, since the child in your belly is mine, I will take responsibility. Just come down first. Tiffany considered it, then slowly drew her legs back. Marcus anxiously stepped forward, ready to grab her. Just then, Tiffany suddenly let out two wild laughs. Do you think I'm a toddler who's easily fooled? Grace, you bitch, you ruined me. I won't let you be happy. She pulled a knife from somewhere and lunged at Grace. Grace's breath hitched, her heart stopped for a second. In that split second, Grace, watch out. The imagined pain didn't come, Marcus had blocked her, taking the blow. Thunk, the knife sank into flesh with a sickening thud. The color drained from Marcus's face instantly. He slowly collapsed, and Grace instinctively caught him. You still had feelings for her. Grace, you deserve to die too. Grace snapped her head up, meeting Tiffany's wild and twisted face. Just then, a team of police officers burst through the door with a loud bang, and a bullet struck Tiffany's hand, stopping her from further attacks. Tiffany let out a scream of agony, crying hysterically. Ah, why? Why me? Grace looked at Marcus, who lay in her arms, her emotions a complex tangle. Why had he risked everything to save her? They were clearly no longer together. Marcus gave a bitter smile. This is what I owe you. I just want you to forgive me. If I could, I'd want to pursue you again, would that be okay? His voice grew softer and softer, carried away by the wind. Ambulances and police cars drove in two different directions. Tiffany was taken away by the police. She looked back over her shoulder, still unwilling to give up, her eyes fixed on Grace. Marcus, though his life was saved, had been stabbed in the kidney, the very same one Grace had donated to him. This time, he lost a kidney. He could only wait in the hospital for a new kidney donor. But even if one was found, he would likely be rendered infertile for the rest of his life. In the hospital corridor, Grace sat on a chair, lost in thought. Liam, who had rushed back from abroad, anxiously checked her for injuries the moment he saw her, then pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm late. Grace's heart finally settled, and she hugged him back tightly. It's okay, I'm fine. But all joking aside, I really do need to thank him this time. Tiffany's rooftop incident quickly became trending online. As reporters had been live streaming downstairs, netizens saw the entire scene unfold. Everyone was lambasting Tiffany, calling her a troublemaker. Marcus also received criticism, as everything had started because of him. Soon, the court's verdict was announced. Tiffany was sentenced to 10 years for attempted murder, but due to her pregnancy, she applied for parole with electronic monitoring. Before the application was approved, Tiffany desperately pleaded to see Grace one last time. Chapter 23. Grace thought about it and decided to go. In the holding cell, she and Tiffany sat facing each other. Tiffany looked at least 10 years older than before, her cheeks hollowed, her expression haggard and bitter. Grace then realized how much she actually resembled Brenda. The doctor said my baby has birth defects, and probably won't live long after birth. If something happens to this child, I'll still go to jail. Tiffany wiped away tears, her eyes no longer holding the former malice and resentment, only pain. This is my karma. She spoke disjointedly, recalling how Brenda had earned a good salary as a housekeeper at the Richard family villa. If had worked diligently, Richard might have been kind enough to sponsor Tiffany's education. But greed got the better of her, and she resorted to stealing. Once disloyal, always untrustworthy. Instead of repenting, Brenda cursed Tiffany for being a useless daughter, which twisted Tiffany's mindset and fueled her deep-seated resentment towards the wealthy. After her incarceration these past 2 days, Tiffany heard that Brenda had been trafficked to the triangle for scamming. It was all karma. Her gaze fell upon Grace's beautiful and delicate face. Grace, I never actually wanted to be your enemy. Ultimately, I was just too jealous of you. But I don't understand. If I had your family background, I would never have loved a poor boy like Marcus. Why were you willing to stay by his side for 7 years? This question stumped Grace. 2. Perhaps it was the breathtaking glimpse at their first meeting, or perhaps because she yearned for every aspect of her life to be perfect. She had so much. The greatest hardship she'd ever experienced in her early life was probably eating bitter melon. So when she committed to a love, she would throw herself into it, even if it meant certain ruin. But luckily, she had a strong family as her support. Even if she ended up bruised and battered, there was always someone to catch her. That was her good fortune. Tiffany, discussing this with me is pointless, because you are not me. Her expression was indifferent, tinged with a hint of pity. I can love Marcus without reservation, and I can also pull away immediately after seeing his true colors. But you can't. You have nothing, and you cling too desperately to things that don't belong to you. These words seemed to pierce Tiffany's heart, her eyes instantly welled up. She wanted to argue, but not a single word could escape her lips. My only advice to you is to reform yourself and turn over a new leaf. Don't make your path even narrower. Grace glanced at the time on her phone. The amusement park launch was imminent, her time was precious, not a second to waste. As she stood up, she heard Tiffany softly sobbing, uttering "I'm sorry." At the hospital. After the surgery, Marcus had to rest in the hospital for a while. Grace had volunteered to cover all his surgical expenses but never showed up to visit him. Every day, Marcus asked the nurse if a miss had come by. The nurse always shook her head. "Mr. Marcus, only your parents have visited, but you said you didn't want to see them." Marcus's eyes were filled with disappointment. During his hospital stay, he constantly replayed his memories with Grace. He had a long dream. In the dream, he was back 7 years ago, recognizing Grace the first time he met her. "You're the Richard family heiress who's been sponsoring me, aren't you? I recognize your handwriting. Gr." Ace blushed, yet couldn't help but act a little proud. "What family heiress? I haven't heard of her." "My name is Grace." He couldn't help but chuckle, overjoyed. All right, miss, it's a pleasure to meet you." After that, he poured all his love wholeheartedly into Grace. They naturally fell in love, married, and had a son and a daughter, incomparably happy. But a dream was just a dream. Upon waking, there was only emptiness and regret. "I'm sorry, Grace. If I could do it all over again," he sighed softly, but no one was there to hear it. 6 months later. Grace was on the island, attending the amusement park's launch ceremony. Fireworks bloomed across the sky, and stars glittered. She nestled in Liam's arms, stroking her belly. A small life was growing within her, she was feeling her daughter's heartbeat. "Liam, I want to name our baby Cammy. May her life bloom as brilliantly as a summer flower, never to be entangled in love's pitfalls or betrayed." Liam bent down and kissed her hair. "That's a beautiful name. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Please feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.